Welcome everyone to the Basement Roundtable on Star Wars. I have with me a very venerated panel of... But anyway, what we did is we went through and polled all of the members of the basement. Most people participated, a handful of people did not. And we rated what we considered the 10 current Star Wars films 1 to 10. And we will be going through them and kind of briefly discussing each film, hopefully not spending a whole lot of time on any one so that this isn't painfully long and boring for you guys, but the potential lies within for it to be a extremely long process. And so with no further ado, the basement number 10, The Phantom Menace.
Really?
Opinions. I looking at my ratings, I'm going to assume that C-mak and Ross will probably have the largest opinions here.
Yeah. I don't remember where I rated it, but I rated it.
You rated it at 7.
Okay, so not 2 then.
It was
I did not like The Phantom Menace. And looking back on it, I thought maybe it was just the nostalgia goggles putting a bad twist on it, it's the new film and it's ruining the original trilogy, and then going back and watching it was like, no.
No, it turns out it's just that.
It's bad.
Although not as bad as other films on the list, as far as I'm concerned.
Sure.
I can understand why people don't like it because of Gungans, for as much as I hate Ewoks. I can see where people just would loathe Gungans, and especially one character just ruining it. And there's a lot of other things wrong with it. What saves it for me is Liam Neeson's Qui-Gon Jinn, Darth Maul, the mystery surrounding him, and even though you get a very limited fight scene between him and Ewan McGregor and Qui-Gon Jinn at the end, it's still worth it. And pod racing isn't as bad as I thought it was.
Yeah, it's decent.
I mean, it's the CGI in that is not as bad.
To be fair, I'm willing to impart that my memory was that all the CGI was that bad, and the pod racing is probably the better CGI in that film.
Yeah.
But yeah.
My complaint with it was there was so much politics involved, and the dialogue in it was just clunky. It just felt like a subpar movie to me. I mean, the visuals were amazing. I appreciate them. I like the CGI to a point. But
And a lot of the dialogue in the original trilogy didn't seem to fit well.
yeah, okay, I'll give you that. But with that, I feel like I gave it a pass because it was so long
I
ago.
think the problem is,
Yeah.
the dialogue might not be, they might be more alike than dissimilar in, the original movies and the prequel, but it's the delivery. Everybody comes across as so bland and boring in that film.
This is what me and Kevin discussed for half an hour prior to this, while we were waiting for people to arrive. It could be that, is it that McGregor is that bad of an actor, or is it the way he was being directed? Was the director saying, "You're a Jedi, less emotion"?
That's part of the reason that, I'm saying, Qui-Gon is the standout character in that movie because he's actually acting and he has some inflection and he's got a little passion to what he's
He
saying.
even breaks the Jedi mold, and that's that was nice to see, at least in terms of that point. But what really saved it for me, if you compare it, so like I was telling you earlier, the hardest part of this wasn't ranking my top 5; it was ranking my bottom 5, and the ones I hate more. And what saves Phantom Menace for me is the fact that they also used puppets, and tried to incorporate that.
They tried to go back to the...
It's the one reason that of all the prequels, that one, to me, still kind of holds up and is similar to all the other ones that have come out after it, and obviously the ones that came out before, is because they were still doing a mix of CGI and practical effects.
And that's... I can't argue that.
That's why the problems
Looking
come
at
in the other two.
Because practical effects are what make the original trilogy hold up. and really, that's not limited to the Star Wars universe. I think that looking at films in general throughout the decades, that films with practical effects typically hold up better than the early years of CGI, which is a lot of what we're dealing with here.
Another thing that affected it was that you go into it expecting, you have such high expectations if you saw it in theaters like I did
Yeah.
compared to the others. So that's totally biased me over the years.
Well, the first new Star Wars movie, or was the first new Star Wars movie in 16 years. It was going to be, overhyped to hell.
Yeah, and
Have every reason.
It
to
could
be.
have been Oscar worthy, and people would.
And we had-
Yeah.
And we all had reason to think that it would be great because George Lucas can do no wrong.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. It wasn't.
traveling back in time, I can tell you now, I dislike this movie a whole lot less than I did at the time. Because having grown up with him, that Jason can be a little overbearing sometimes.
What?
We dealt with that on a daily basis.
No.
It's the greatest
And-
movie ever.
And that was pretty rough. But
Did he say it was the greatest movie ever?
I don't think.
Okay.
But it's going to be the greatest movie
It
ever.
might have been.
Oh.
You had.
Yeah, I suppose.
There was a lot of trying to rev us up for this film.
To be fair, I would have been the same way if I'd still been working with you at the time.
Well, sure,
but I would apologize for it now, retroactively. But
and it is what I was probably the same way when Return of the King came out, because that was the first.
that's another
Lord of the
point I was
Rings
going to
is
bring up. Part of what hurts the prequel so much is that you had this other trilogy going on around the same time that was just so much better. And
Yeah.
again, they used practical and CGI.
Yep.
So
And
Lord of the Rings films still hold up well. To
well,
this
and
day.
I look at the Lord of the Rings films, and the parts that I don't like are the CGI parts.
Yeah.
And some of it is done well, and some of it is done so horribly that's where, ultimately to me, that's where this original trilogy, how it falls so low in the
Queen Amidala has a very limited speaking role in the first one, so I'm really happy with that. And thinking back, there's shitty dialogue is probably going to be the theme that everyone's going to mention in every one of these films. Everyone has that part in a movie where you remember a line and you're like, oh, just cringe. And in terms of the Phantom Menace, those parts are very lessened.
You're an angel.
Yeah, okay, but he's a kid, and you expect that from kids.
Do I?
All of a sudden, you get a tween who's like, sand gets everywhere, or
I'll
something.
save that for episode 2, my friend.
Yeah.
But the other thing though with the whole looking at the fact that he's a kid, a lot of times they try to play him as that kid,
Mhm.
and then other times they're like, no, he's an adult, he's gonna hit on the princess.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna that whole creepy.
That is one of my biggest problems with that film in general. Is that
Huge age gap between the two.
Well, and
they
it's
should
not.
have just if you could go back in time and do it, just have Hayden Christensen play Anakin Skywalker for all 3 films. Just have the same actor, just like you did with Luke in the original trilogy. Just have the same guy play Anakin. He can be that way. He's a little bit older in the first one, and it's less creepy.
But okay, any closing thoughts?
We haven't even talked about midichlorians.
We're skipping that whole topic. I
What?
think.
Come on.
Okay, you want to talk about it?
That was just
You kind of have to when you bring up episode
Let's
1.
shoehorn this into our.
we call it.
'Cause that's what they did in the
What is
movie.
it called? Like God from the Machine, where all of a sudden you just throw in a random this explains why Jedi's exist for no apparent reason.
Yeah.
And I remember being there like, this is a thing? Is this a thing?
The midichlorians and the Gungans are the reason. Well, one Gungan specific is the reason why
let's
I have
be
that
honest.
movie
One
in
Gungan.
the last.
One Gungan ruined an
Unless the-
entire race.
The one that you hang out with starting 15 minutes into the film and for the rest of the film, and yeah,
Why couldn't I have 2 hours of boss ass?
that'd be fun.
It would have been better.
What drives me nuts about midichlorians is that, when you hear all the stories about the making of the original film and how he went out of his way to come up with a concept that didn't, rely on, any, one religion, just it's this thing that gives you powers, whatever. And it's like, no, it needs to be something specific.
Science.
Yeah, but no!
The other thing that I guess just popped into my head with that first film is just, I don't know how else to explain it. Space racism?
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. just like
The whole prequel trilogy is just chock full of
yeah.
Yeah.
stereotypes.
They try to tone it down after the first one, but the damage is pretty much already
Watching
done at
G
that
Gundam.
point.
Yeah, it is.
You got not Asians and not Jamaicans and not Arab sand merchants trying to sell you
Yeah.
parts for your ship, and it's bad.
But
Yeah.
I do want to bring up a point, and that's the first scene of when they're on that ship with the rolling
Right,
droid
right,
cars. That's not a bad scene.
The movie starts off strong, and you're like, okay, all right,
Yeah,
I like it. You know,
like,
there's a little bit of boring dialogue at first, but it's like, okay, this is getting
Yeah.
good, and then as soon as Jar Jar shows up, you're like, oh no.
Every single one of the movies has a few very good scenes.
Oh, it's like I can't. They ranked pretty low on my list, but they all have their moments. I do enjoy parts of those films. Some of them, some are almost like complete films where I like most of this, but it's just like
For all of them too, it's like I didn't like quite a few of them, but I appreciate them. I'm glad I saw them because they still had redeeming factors in them too.
I think when I wrote my list, I put a little note in there in the bottom 5. It's about the elements that I have to remove from these films to find enjoyment.
Yeah.
and like that's why I think Revenge of
Watching-
the Sith was like to take like an hour and a half out of this movie to kind of find some sort of enjoyment out of it.
I saw at one point on the internet Phantom Menace without Jar Jar.
the Phantom Menace.
The edit,
Yeah.
and it's not that bad of a movie.
If Jar Jar had been Darth Lord Jar Jar, that would have been amazing.
He's not a bad guy. You know, what?
And it just
totally 360.
If
that.
Jar Jar just hadn't talked like a moron for
well,
half the film, he could've
why
been
why
better.
do you have to force in this character for small children? Like I get marketing, I understand this. It just
It
felt
was
like a
so
cat.
toys.
it
There
felt
was
like
a way
cat
to
grab.
play him up though that you could have gotten away with having a character like that. They just didn't do it. Like if you make him more like I've always used the example. If you make him more like Shaggy from Scooby Doo, where he's this like coward, he doesn't want to do anything, he's clumsy, and he's getting into trouble all the time.
I don't
Right.
It'd
understand.
be okay.
Why did they have to just all of a sudden inject a random new species, a new alien race? They have a well.
Because he had CGI and he could do whatever he
I mean,
wanted
you
at that
could
point. That's
have thrown in a Wookiee in that situation, and a new one, and everyone would be like, yes.
yes,
So,
but that's another part of the problem with the prequels is because George Lucas had no filter anymore. He could do whatever he wanted because all you had to do was tap tap
Yeah.
tap on a
they
computer,
have to be creative,
and he could create anything he wanted. And there's the problem.
and no one sat in that boardroom going up. They were just seeing
you
numbers.
wanna-
Yeah,
you
that's,
wanna do one
that's the problem with the entirety of the original trilogy.
Well, again, it's the
It
same thing. It's the same thing that we thought when we were going to going to see episode 1. Everybody else that was behind the scenes is like, you can't do anything wrong. This is going to be amazing. Did any of you ever watch the documentary that was on the episode 1 DVD? I can't remember what it's called, The Beginning or whatever. Where it's basically it's an hour-long documentary, essentially following George Lucas along with the production of episode 1. And it's really interesting because there's all kinds of people behind the scenes where you can just kind of like, sometimes when he's talking, they're kind of like, and the best part is, he gets all of the people in his his theater at Skywalker Ranch. Like he even admits like, I think I went a little too far in a few places.
They're
It's like,
realizing the cult.
even he knew.
They're realizing the cult
They were
was
in
a little
trouble.
off as
Yeah.
all of a sudden I'm not drinking this Kool-Aid anymore.
Not interested in the Kool-Aid.
All right, next film.
Okay, so let's move
Yes.
forward. We could talk about any one film all night, but
Yeah.
at number 9, Attack of the Clones.
It suffered from similar things to the first one, but it was getting better.
C-mak, you've got positive points. I know you. I read your notes.
No. Well,
We'll start with some positives.
Yes.
C-mak can bring them up, and I know he can because
excellent.
Because, in all fairness, I was, let's see when did that come out, like 2002? I was 10. So, yeah.
the young pup here.
Yeah.
The rest of us
Yeah.
are like, we were drinking at the bar.
Especially after the movie.
Yep.
I mean, a lot of the things I enjoyed on it, like the entire Battle of Geonosis, I thought was really cool. Because if you just sit back, you can kind of watch in the background that there's actually some thought put into it, unlike some points in the arena where there's a guy swinging at air because they forgot to put the droids around him. But you can see
Yeah, no, that's for real.
fighting going on way in the background. It's like, oh, that's pretty neat. And then the whole Yoda fight was, to me,
That
pretty
for me is
mind-blowing.
the only redeeming scene in that whole movie.
And what I liked about
Yoda
it,
flip it around.
what I liked about it is that they gave it no screen time prior. You had no idea what was happening.
Right.
And if you walked into that with blind without watching a pirated version or anything like that, I remember being in the theater and thinking like, they're not gonna show the fight. No, they're not. Oh my god, he's fighting! Holy shit!
In my notes, I think I put that seeing Yoda fight was fucking ridiculous. I did not like it, but I appreciate that he showed he was a master. But just it seems like he was flopping around too much.
I loved it the first time I saw it. I loved it the second time I saw it. It was about the third time where I'm like, yeah, this isn't as cool as I thought it was initially.
I went into it to that particular scene. I didn't go and see this in the theater. I didn't see any of the original trilogy in the theater. Once we get to the next film, I'll discuss some other stuff. But I didn't see any of the original trilogy in the theater. I don't see a whole lot of movies at the theater. I'm too cheap. But people had told me, like and there was a very diverse opinion, all across the board of this fight. And I went into it and I'm like, this is going to be the lamest thing ever. And I think it was very, very cool in what I expected from it. I never expected it to be like Yoda flipping and going all crazy. I expected him to be like more of like an intellectual fighter and just a smart fighter. But I did appreciate that scene. This being the film I did not go back and watch.
Yeah, and to be honest, this is where like the shitty dialogue that was
So bad.
somewhat present in episode 1
Gets worse.
just came
so
out
bad.
because you got Ewan McGregor acting, which
He's
So
trying.
he's
He's
trying.
trying as hard as he can
he's
with
got
what he's
heart.
given.
He's got heart.
I mean, the Obi-Wan parts of that movie when he's like interacting with Jango stuff, those are the parts of Attack of the Clones I like. Everything else, and the battle, because it's a Star Wars battle and they're awesome, but everything else about that movie,
And
oh
the
my god.
asteroid fight was pretty interesting.
Well, again, it involves Obi-Wan and Jango, so
And you
yeah.
got the weird dude that works at the diner who has just like, it's like a cameo for someone that no one knows.
Uh-huh.
Which is fine. That's okay. And then you have more Amidala time. Fantastic.
Mhm, mhm.
Everything having to do with Anakin Amidala movie was
Yeah.
just
Oh,
the
that
biggest
that
cringe ever.
George.
Yeah.
If George Lucas can't write regular normal dialogue, he sure as hell can't write romantic
The
dialogue.
ballad I want to
oh
bang
my
my
God.
aunt is what I think of it as like,
I
pretty
hate
much
sand.
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And the thing, like, in the original trilogy, there's love story there, but it's not, like, forced down your throat. In this film, it just felt like, hey, look!
Also, the way it's just the romantic stuff in like the original trilogy, it's kind of downplayed, but it's also just like the dialogue. Like he's going for like this kind of Shakespearean like Romeo and Juliet
Yep.
thing in episode 2, and it just doesn't work.
And I get why he's doing that because he wants to build up the fall.
Mhm.
That's what he wants. He wants to
Yeah.
crescendo
Well,
it all.
that's
like,
what that's
it's
what the
gotta be
prequel's
this-
about.
If you're gonna go to the dark side and be like kill younglings, which is probably the only scene I like out of the third one the most. But if you're gonna do that to that point, you gotta build them up. But
They roll through the field a little bit. That's pretty
Oh,
romantic.
man, he rides on that horrible CGI cow thing and
yeah.
falls
Yeah.
off of it. Remember how great that
be,
was?
Like, it could be a natural thing. Like it doesn't have to be like this grand like.
And that brings, like you were saying with the CGI in episode 1 and how, it doesn't hold up and stuff. To me, that's episode 2. Like,
I agree, it
it
doesn't
is,
hold up.
it is the one that holds up. It is the worst one of the prequels. Like, doesn't hold up at all. Gets every time, I try to watch them every year, like, in a row. Which gets harder to do because they keep adding more of them. But, every time I watch it, it gets worse and worse.
How about the
And
action-packed Senate scenes?
Yeah.
They had
C-SPAN.
on
Star
the
Wars.
movie.
You mean when Jar Jar Binks is responsible for the downfall of the Republic?
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny.
There's that.
Because if there was anybody, it would be him.
I think we all had a little bit of the original series kind of on our mind too when we went and saw that
I'm
one.
sure
Thinking like, A New Hope was good. It was really good. And then you get Empire Strikes Back and you're like, maybe it's gonna be that good. And then you go to that and you're like, it was not that good. It was that
And
bad.
again, that was the thing. Oh, yeah, episode 2. We all watched episode 1. We were all let down by it. Once those trailers and stuff started coming out for episode 2, you're like, ooh, this might be better. Oh my god. I think he's got it right this
Purple
time.
lightsabers?
Ooh,
Maybe
boy.
there's a chance.
Oh my god, that looks like a stormtrooper. This is
Yeah.
Oh, you did it again.
which
Got me again.
You said stormtroopers. This brings up a point me and Kevin
Yeah.
discussed. The movie is called Attack of the Clones.
Mm-hmm.
Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be about, like, 10 years before the movie. 10 years before the movie.
Mm-hmm.
10 years before the movie. doesn't happen in the film.
Are there any clones attacking?
There are clones.
They show up
There are
at the
clones.
end.
Yeah.
They attack things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the name of the movie implies that the clones are the things that our good guys are actually going to fight instead of being
Well, right,
the
and-
army that the good guys lead.
That's
But, you know,
actually that was actually an interesting point in it to me. Is like that's where my mindset was. Is like, oh, it's gonna be the clone army. They're gonna be bad guys. No, they're the good guys. And that was a good kind of an interesting twist. But just the fact that they call the film Attack of the Clones, you really don't get.
Introduce the
Clones
main
attack.
army, the last scene. That's the introduction.
Odd to me, and it doesn't. The movie. It's not like the movie title needs to be announced in the film.
Yeah.
You know, they've been taken.
Yeah.
I
Taken again for the last time. Something like that. But yeah.
I don't need that, but at least have it relate. You know.
And again, we're getting the injection of
Star Wars.
random species,
Yeah.
like the Grey, that all of a sudden are like this weird like composite of like alien abductions and like super tall people, and they have like a cameo appearance and they don't flesh out anything to do with them. Why can't you just make an existing race that that's what they do in the universe, rather than here's this random thing in this
And
planet.
again, it's because he could make those crazy, weird, tall-looking ETs with his computers, and that's cool. I don't need to use any of these goofy guys in masks. That's not
We
fun.
never heard from them again after that
Nope.
movie, did we?
No, not unless you watch the Clone Wars cartoon. But we're not talking about those right now. So.
Right.
And one thing that really confused me between Attack of the Clones and Return of the Jedi is during that one Senate scene, Yoda and Mace are talking. It's like, we need to send every Jedi we can to Geonosis. And then at the end of the fight, there's 20, 25 Jedi left standing. And then as the fight goes on, you see, a ship that had at least 4 or 5 of them, that blew up. More of them died. And then Revenge of the Sith comes around. It's like, you guys got an entire building full. Where were these guys? And
I believe the idea is that they took every Jedi that was just hanging around the temple on Coruscant. Like all the other Jedi were off doing other things. That's all they could get to help
Yeah.
Obi-Wan and Anakin in time.
Let's
is
spend a
what it
little
was.
time with one on the council. I need to flesh
The
it.
biggest group of morons in existence.
Not only the morons, but like they have no role whatsoever besides like Yoda going, and then who does fight, and Mace Windu having a very. But other than you have legitimately powerful beings who can fight and that don't do anything.
They go they sit in chairs. They go and they go out of their way to belittle and antagonize Anakin at every possible second.
Yep.
So it's like they're asking him to turn into Darth Vader.
And Count Dooku, who
Chris,
could have been good.
He very
Dooku.
much.
Well, it's Christopher Lee's great. Dooku is one of the Django and Dooku are actually kind of
Yeah, I appreciate
I like
pretty good
Dooku's
performances for
character.
what they've got.
I like how they characterize him and how they like the cinematography they put into him, and I just feel like whenever he's like there, his dialogue's not bad. His acting managed to save some of the shitty dialogue,
Yeah.
but he could have just been so much more devious. I think, not like evil, but manipulative and devious, and just a little bit more playing on the heartstrings of Obi-Wan. And
Well, he does pretty much do all that stuff. I mean, he is pretty much tricking everybody he's talking to into doing
It's
what
just a
Palpatine, or
realm
excuse me,
where-
Darth Sidious wants.
I
Who is this mysterious Darth Sidious?
I can see where you're coming from. Like I could using him as. It's obviously he's not using Force, because it's not widespread public knowledge in the movie, I guess. So he's got to be devious, and it's not really. I mean, he is devious, but it's not really flippant. Maybe it's just that I want more Christopher Lee.
Yeah, it's
The movie could have used
and
more.
we got him again. We're going to talk about the better trilogy that's going on here. We got him in that one, and it was really
Oh
good.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was like, holy shit, Sauron and Saruman, fucking A. And then you get this character, it's like, oh, he's in both good. Oh,
Yeah.
we just have the Dark Lord in this one and that one.
He's kind of wasted potential,
Although
like Django.
Palpatine is probably a saving grace for me in the entire
Oh, he's
early.
He's devious enough, and even though his dialogue, like, just looking at his dialogue, it looks like if you were to read it, it's clumsy.
Yep.
But the way
His facial
he
expressions.
carries it is
It's a lot like Liam Neeson in episode 1. He's chewing scenery, he knows what he's doing, and he's just having a hell of a time doing it, and it comes across on the screen. He's the only, like, fun character to watch in those movies sometimes.
And you know it's him, and you're like, when's it gonna happen? Like, when?
What?
what?
You knew the whole time?
Yeah.
How did
Wow.
you know?
I don't know.
Oh my God.
It was the fourth.
I suppose you're going to tell me that you knew that Padme and the Queen were the same person, too.
No, I didn't know
Okay.
that. Her acting completely confused me on that. Such a good method
Yeah,
actor.
that seemed to come out of left field, and that one was like,
Well, it's like, are you trying to trick me? You don't seriously expect me to believe that these are two different people, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay.
I was trying to think of any films that Natalie Portman has been good in.
V for Vendetta?
The Professional, you know, when she was like 12?
Even V for Vendetta, I didn't really care for her. Black Swan, okay, but that's not everyone's cup of tea.
Right.
Thor, hate her. Can't
So
stand
are
her.
you just telling me that because she looks good on the screen, maybe she gets roles?
Do you really think that she looks good? I don't know.
I'm not personally.
I can see where people.
This
hey,
is
10-year-old me thought she was hot.
Yeah. Okay. Well, 10-year-old you thought a lot of women were hot.
sidebar to that, she's one of those actresses where it's sometimes she is, sometimes she isn't. It's like, I don't know what it is, but sometimes like, yeah, she's pretty attractive. And then I was like, oh.
To be
no, it's
fair,
not.
10-year-old me thought Rogue in the X-Men cartoon was hot. So.
Yes. Yes.
That
Sugar.
was pretty hot.
Sugar.
Oh.
Touch me.
Continue,
It's
I'm
worth
sorry.
it.
One of the final things I'll say on that, not bad, but was that Jango Fett. He, at the time, that seemed like a really good quality of that film because it was tying into being, Boba Fett's father, but also like a link to the Clone Army, and he was the originator of that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think some of the concepts in it were really good. It kind of faltered overall, but I like the little details there.
Yeah. Speaking of Little Boba, I don't necessarily think I ever needed to see Little Boba Fett, but
That's true.
Sometimes it's best to just leave it a mystery.
That's
Yeah.
and that's there's things that are best left alone with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a fine line to walk, and I can't blame them for bringing that into the film
no.
because you got to try it.
He's probably one of the most popular characters in the series.
For somebody
For
who has
some
like
for some reason.
several minutes of screen time,
Yeah.
he's
Couple lines.
Well, again, part of the reason he's so cool in the original trilogy is because he has about 5 lines of dialogue and he just looks badass and mysterious the whole time.
yeah.
And then you kind of take that away when it's like, oh, it's just a little 10-year-old kid
With daddy issues now.
with daddy's head dropping into his lap when he picks up his helmet. Why didn't that happen, by the way? That's what should have happened.
Yeah.
All right, have we spoken enough of?
I think so.
I
We're-
think we've
we're
spoken
spending
more.
an awful
I think
lot
we've
of time.
spoken more
We
than
need-
enough
we need to
about
let the
episode
hate
2.
flow through us.
Move on.
We'll move forward because now we get to Revenge of the Sith, which
Ah.
I promised a story.
Really, all of the original 3 made the top bottom.
The bottom
That
three.
upsets me.
But the
Of
thing
course
with
they
Revenge
did.
of the Sith, this is my favorite Star Wars story I think in general, is everybody went to go see Revenge of the Sith, and they were going to go stand in line for hours. Meanwhile, I watched it, and your brother's standing in line, and I'm like, "Doot, doot, doot, doot. Hey, guess what happens in this film? Shut up, shut up, shut up.
Did you just say that Anakin becomes Darth Vader?
No, I didn't actually. I didn't.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
I did not ruin it for him. But
Spoilers.
I watched the
Sam
film
gets
all, before its midnight release.
That's how I watched episode 2 in the parking lot of the theater waiting to see episode 2. So, yeah.
By that point, I just waited until they came on DVDs because.
Well, I wasn't paying money for it, but Rob had it, so.
I honestly can't remember what happens in Revenge of the Sith aside from the last scene.
Pretty much
I'm trying to remember plot points. Like,
They rescue Palpatine from the ship.
oh
they
yeah, that's
antagonize
got the best line. Unlimited power.
That's it. Yeah. They antagonize Anakin some. He turns to Darth Vader. He kills a bunch of things. Obi-Wan killifies him or tries to. He becomes Darth Vader. The end.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
pretty much the movie.
Younglings die.
Bad. Everybody dies. If they weren't around for the original trilogy, they die.
Did he kill the Tuscans in that, or is that the one?
That's the second one.
Yeah.
Okay. Just saying.
Yeah, that's the first where he's going down the dark side rabbit hole.
Mhm.
Yeah, the third one, maybe it's because there aren't as many memorable bad moments that it ranked higher for me.
One bad moment in it.
There's a lot of bad
That
moments,
ruins
but
the whole thing for me.
It's the one where it kind of felt like Lucas was finally getting in his groove directing these things again. Unfortunately, it was the last film in a trilogy, so it's kind of like too little, too late.
I can see that.
But it doesn't. Yeah, it's not. I find it not nearly as bad as the other two. It's also where the special effects were kind of catching up to what
Yeah,
he wanted to
there's
do. The
that.
special effects in that one.
Finally,
hold up
something
better.
happens in the Senate worth watching.
Yeah.
I actually rated Revenge of the Sith very high. It was my number 3. So
that's true. It is.
I
Really?
feel like
It was my highest rated of these three. So.
C-mak rated it 4, so
This was my second one. Or might have been
this was your lowest.
Yeah, and one reason. You're breaking my heart.
the dialogue obviously
Completely
is
ruined.
still gonna be
Really?
awful.
I checked out of the theater at that point. I was like, and I'm done. Thank you. Fuck you. It's just, can't
Yeah,
handle
but
this.
then it's followed up by some of Anakin's best worst lines, so I was okay with it.
It's
You
because I'm
door
so
for
in love
me,
with
oh
you.
god!
The high ground. I have the high ground. I just
She
shut up.
tried to warn him.
Shut up.
But he's talking about metaphorical high ground.
No, he was talking about literal high ground. He was standing higher than him.
Dude, I was trying to get.
Although the Frankenstein at the end, when I finally did finish it, that was okay. I like that. That was interesting.
Until the no.
Yeah.
There's some legitimately brilliant scenes in that movie, though.
Again, of all those three,
the
there's
march on the temple is amazing.
it has the most stuff. Like the stuff I don't like is outweighed by the stuff I do like in episode 3, whereas it's pretty much the opposite for the other two.
The Yoda escape with the Wookiees. There's a scene I remember, which it kind of ties things together. Some would say that it's forced, but
What we haven't had Chewbacca in there.
well, the thing is moving back when you go back to the lore outside the films prior to this series. That wasn't something he just created. That was something that was kind of hinted at all along.
And there's such great lore with the Wookiee and Kashyyyk and their home planet, and it's I kept waiting. Like,
Life
you
Day.
go there, please go there, because there's so much good stuff there.
And then we
like,
spend about 5 minutes.
and then like there's other planets like Kos and Manan, even the fucking water planet, like whatever. There's great areas to go to, and we're like, man, Tatooine 90% of the time. And I'm gonna go to some other ones. All right, here, fuck off,
Yeah.
I do like fast forwarding to one of the. I think which one of the new ones shows him on Darth Vader on the lava planet?
That's Rogue One. It's Rogue One.
Yeah, where they go to him.
Yep.
I like that. Little nod to the.
Well, I think part of the thing that helps episode 3 out is that this was the end game. This is the part of the story he's always had in his head, because it's like, he had to establish that for the original trilogy. Obi-Wan had a fight. This happened. He turned into Darth Vader. So it's like, it's fleshed out in a way.
He didn't have to build backwards that far.
Well, depends on who you talk to, because I mean, he's had those prequels written for years,
Yeah.
but obviously not so much. But that one he did really,
The opening space battle of Revenge of the Sith, I really liked.
Don't they Obi-Wan and Anakin fight Count-Dooku in the cockpit? Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that.
that's where they're in the part of the ship that looks a lot like the throne room in Return of the Jedi, and Palpatine's sitting in the chair. They fight Grievous like 5 minutes after they fight
Yeah.
Dooku.
Grievous, another character that I wish
Oh.
would have had more.
Yeah.
I wish they wouldn't have done the.
Yep.
Well, that's just it. It's like Grievous and Darth Maul are both kind of like the Boba Fett's of the original trilogy, where it's like they're so cool looking, and there's so much you could have done with them, and it's like, oh, no, they're
It's like
gone
they kill him
now.
off in the episode they introduced him in. Like, here's this really cool guy. Bang.
Well, it's
Other than rollerblade lightsabers, I'm
yeah.
okay with
No,
that.
that was just that. Okay.
Although it is pretty cool when
When
he
I
thinks
first
he's got
saw it,
such
I
a
thought it looked awesome.
well, and I do love the fact that he thinks he's so cool, and Obi-Wan just like zoom, 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 and now you've only got one hand, so now you've got as many lightsabers as me. What are you gonna do about
What is
it?
his race? What's it called?
Oh God, Kalish,
Yeah, which are badass, and then you know a little bit about them. I also don't like that freaking lizard that Obi-Wan rides with that.
Oh, yeah.
The chicken lizard?
Yeah.
Chicken
Super
lizard.
awesome.
Yeah. Like, how come that every good guy has
Super-
to ride some weird animal?
Toy sales.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah,
it's also
toy
super.
sales.
It's also super conducive to sneaking around. You don't want to be seen when that thing is going squawking every 5
Well, yeah,
seconds
it's
up in the
basically
rafters.
a dinosaur, you know. So
I mean, if the battle droids are stupid enough, they probably just think it's the wind.
Yeah, but General Grievous is there. He probably. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's.
We're getting a little too in depth on this part, but.
I mean, it was a film. It still is, I guess. I mean, it's out there.
yeah,
Should we move forward?
on to bigger and
Yeah.
better things.
All right. So we've done 10, 9, and 8. So we move on to number 7, The Last Jedi.
Ooh, I'm not surprised to see
I
this.
like The Last Jedi.
I despise The Last Jedi.
I liked it the second time I saw it. I
I
liked
liked
it
The Last Jedi.
infinitely better than the first time I saw it.
I did not like The Last Jedi.
It totally just messed with your expectations, and I appreciate that.
I did not go into it with expectations.
But it kind of
Of-
messes with your kind of messes with your expectations just to mess with your expectations.
Yeah.
and that's not
It's not like-
always good.
I didn't go into it like, oh, we're gonna get Mark Hamill again.
Yeah.
Like, I ultimately kind of expected less than what we got as far as, okay, Han Solo's back. Like, I was expecting, okay, Mark Hamill's going to be in this for like 2 minutes total, and it's not going to be anything important. And we got more than that. But it felt like Mark Hamill was in this film because Mark Hamill had to be in this film.
Part of it, yeah.
I think
I mean, I fully expected him to get killed off by the end.
Right.
I did.
I expected that. I expected his grandstand, which he kind of got. And watching it a second time, there's a lot of subtle hints
Mm-hmm.
that you don't pick up on the first one because you're so enamored. You're looking for that big payoff of Mark Hamill fighting Kylo Ren or whatever, and they kind of give you that. I appreciate that they kind of gave it to you, but
Yeah.
in a realm of a good Jedi.
They do it in a way that makes sense for Luke. He's
Yeah.
so powerful. I'm just gonna project my mind and I'm gonna fight you with my mind.
Yeah.
You're not even there,
Yeah.
dude.
And I don't. What was the one thing that Snoke? Red herrings, things that just don't matter.
I kind of appreciated that because again, it's especially after the criticism of Episode 7 just being Episode 4 all over again. You're expecting she's not gonna face Snoke until Episode 9. Oh wait, she's already done it, and he's already dead. Well, what the fuck are they gonna do? I'm sorry. What the hell are they gonna do
You
for
can say
Episode 9?
fuck.
Okay,
We say
fine.
fuck on our channel all the time.
All right,
Fuck
fair enough.
balls.
Fucking A.
You were gonna say something.
The thing that when I put Last Jedi as 8,
Yes, you put it at. Wait, that's me. You put it at 8 as well.
okay, when you have the ability to cut out roughly a third of the movie and it has no effect on the story and how it goes, Finn's entire thing completely pointless.
I was just about to bring that up.
Completely pointless.
The scenes I don't like in that film are anything on Canto Bight. It's like
Yeah.
I appreciate the message about rich people not
Yeah.
giving as much of a crap about
Yeah.
the little people,
It's
but
the
it
birth
doesn't.
of a new resistance, and so it serves as a plot device, but it's way too overdone. Like, do you need them rescuing those weird animals again?
No, it's like I said. I like in and of itself. I think all those scenes are nice. I don't think they need to be in the film. I think they drag the movie down a little bit.
To be 100% fair, I'd forgotten all about that scene.
Uh-huh.
And that's a lot of the film.
That's how forgettable it is.
If
and that's,
Finn would not have left the ship at all, it would have had no effect on the story.
However, they do introduce Benicio del Toro's character, who I do like.
but the thing is, you could have introduced his character
In
in a
many
different
different
way
ways.
and gotten to the same point without having to have the.
It's a plot device. Not every scene in a movie is going to be a masterpiece
Right.
or serve a purpose. It is drawn out. And this weird love triangle that's forming here, possibly was a quartet. If we're really thinking about it here now.
Yeah.
I mean, because you could have Poe Dameron, Finn, Poe Dameron, maybe someone else, Finn between the supporting character Finn between Ray between Finn, Ray between
Rose.
maybe whatever. And I'm not hating on Rose as like an actress because I thought she did a good job. I just your character like
And you're not like the rest of the internet.
doesn't yeah that upsets me because
No, it's bad.
it's because she did a good job and ultimately her character isn't bad. It doesn't ruin the movie for me. It just doesn't serve a purpose right now.
Yeah, but from the first one where I appreciated Finn, I mean, everybody gonna say it was a copy of the other one, but I liked how he was going with, like, he could have branched off, and it was just disappointing.
Finn defined that first movie. And he was a
Yeah.
good.
Finn was the best part of.
Finn and
first
Rey's their
series.
interaction was the best part of that whole movie.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's like a lot of the other a lot of characters in the sequel trilogy are similar to other characters we know. Finn is kind of like nobody we've seen
Yep.
before because he's goofier than the other. He's kind of like a successful Jar Jar almost.
Yeah.
Like he talks a big game and he cracks jokes, but he's really kind of terrible at everything he does.
He was a stormtrooper, and I think that there's some history there that you're kind of not getting the full story behind. I think there's.
Well, I think it's part of it is like he doesn't know how to handle these kind of situations
Yeah.
because he lived in this regimented stormtrooper
Mhm.
lifestyle.
And you cleared the sewers or whatever.
Yeah.
Was that
He was like sanitation or whatever, yeah.
I liked the mind link. I didn't like that Snoke did it. I would have rather had that been like some weird anomaly through the Force, and have it
But
unexplained.
yes, but I was disappointed in it the first time too, but when you think about what they're setting up for the end of the film, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because Kylo at one point says, you can't be doing this by yourself or you'd be dead.
Yeah.
So basically once you find out what Luke is doing, you realize, oh, well, then he's dead.
If I may add one thing in Last Jedi that I also didn't like is we got to put everything on a timer. We're gonna run out of power.
The slow speed chase?
Yeah.
Space chase.
And just it's
So good.
we only have this much time. Like,
That was
I don't
poor
need-
writing.
I don't need this added. Like you could write it out in so many other ways. Of we've never ever in any of the films seen like we got to stop and get gas. It doesn't happen. Suddenly it becomes a thing.
Happens in Solo. Well, that's what they're looking for gas.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
but-
you see them fueling up ships and stuff in the other movies, so you kind of understand that they do run on some
you
kind
see
of
them
fuel.
fueling up small ships.
Well-
You never see them fueling up a big fucking battle cruiser. They could have just written it in as they're trying to corner us and trap us,
Yeah.
and we're going to encounter.
Well, a lot of people get hung up on the slow speed chase. To me, it's just the fact that it's like the First Order has them right where they want them. The First Order's being arrogant. It's like we don't need to. We can just chase them and make them sweat a little bit, and then when we're ready, we just blow the crap out of them. It's
However,
like, we've won.
if you flip at the end when she finally decides to essentially suicide bomb the shit out of them.
That's
And I'm
so
thinking to
bad.
myself, is why don't they do this more often?
Everybody thinks about it because nobody thought about doing it
Yeah,
before. Is the real answer.
And it's a great scene.
Oh god,
Yeah,
that's so
there's-
great.
There's a couple scenes in the movie that are amazing.
Like when they purposely have no sound and it's just the
Yep.
cinematics of it, and you're kind of realizing the magnitude of what she just did. And I'm sad to see her character go because I liked her as like a plot device, and she's
Sorry, I'm gonna kind of build on that. One of the things I didn't like was the 2 seconds Admiral Akbar is dead.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
dead. He's dead.
Because it's like you could have had him be the one to launch the ship at him and then save Holdo or
Could have
Hogan
had
or
Leia
whatever.
do it and not have
Yeah,
to
I
figure
just-
her out.
I
just
think
fly through space. Why not?
Akbar,
Take a ship.
killing off Akbar just seemed like you didn't really understand how much Admiral Akbar meant to Star
Yeah.
Wars. It's like,
Yeah.
oh,
Well, and it felt to me like they're just like, okay, all these old characters, we have to kill them all off because they can't be related to this
Okay.
film. Except for Chewie.
I
Chewie's okay. But everybody else, we gotta kill them off as fast as we can.
I found out later on that the guy that does Admiral Akbar's voice passed away, so I think they were just
Okay.
killing him off because they weren't going to use him anymore
Yeah.
since
Sure.
Leia was
That
gone.
makes
But
sense.
well, you could still have him appear.
you could.
He's a major part of
To me,
everything
the-
that's going on in.
So
To me, the biggest thing is, like I said, the most interesting thing about Episode 8 is I literally have no idea what's going to happen in Episode 9 now, because everything I thought was going to happen in
Yeah.
9 happened in 8.
and
That's true.
there's that, and I don't understand. So is Leia a Force adept? Is that would she be considered that?
Well,
not-
she's a Skywalker,
yeah.
so she knows, you know, and I'm assuming Luke probably taught her a few things before he went to go, you know, drink out of some giant
flying through
lizard's
space.
teeth.
Well,
And
you can't fly through space. I thought everybody could do the glowy.
I
she's
mean,
not flying through space. She's pulling herself
I
towards
know,
the
but that's-
ship
I
with the Force.
understand.
I know it
I
looks
just-
like she's flying, but she's
it doesn't
not.
matter to me. It's just like all of a sudden, God from the machine. Oh, Leia's dead.
Nope, she's got the Force.
She got the Force now? What happened? When did this happen?
Well, I always assumed that she was some kind of Force adept because they hint at it at times, even in the original trilogy. But to just suddenly drop like the bomb of like, oh, what she knows how to use it.
That was the scene for me in that show where, much like Yoda fighting, it just seemed ridiculous. I know it and appreciate it. It makes sense, but
It was a little
watching it-
off-putting at first. I'm okay with it. The thing I'm not okay with is the iron joke. That thing drives me nuts. Yeah, to me it's the worst thing about that movie. It's only a couple seconds, but it's just I feel Last Jedi might be a little too jokey sometimes.
It's way too
And the
weird.
sight gag of that iron, like, you know, they make it look like it's a spaceship landing. It's just an iron pressing uniform. Is like, no.
I thought that was hilarious.
I enjoyed Poe's messing with him as he was going in.
Yeah.
See, and that's something that other people don't like, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
one.
I like that.
Sight
like
gag,
Poe's
sight gag
character.
drives
I
me.
like Poe's
Yeah.
character,
Well, Poe
and I
is-
think that he is a good fit for the series, and you can argue that he's just filling the role.
I may have a bit of a man crush on Poe. Full
So does
disclosure. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know.
Which you're totally fine with. Great. Go there, Star Wars.
Yeah.
Go there.
Yeah, I'd be alright with that
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
But you know, I like character pieces in this film. There's spots in it, and I didn't rank it incredibly low. I know I gave
These-
it 8.
I ranked them fairly high on my list, but it was hard to do because they're still so new, and we don't really know how this is all going to play out because Episode 9 hasn't come out yet.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like, I mean, this Episode 9 might come out, and based on how good or bad it is, they might stay where they are. Or I could be like, you know what, these aren't as, you know,
I can honestly
they
say
drop
with this
down.
film, The Last Jedi was the first Star Wars movie that the first time I watched it, I just paused it halfway through and went to bed, and then finished watching it the next day.
Mm.
And I'm not saying that there's other films that
No,
I would do that to now, but at the time I didn't.
Kylo Ren's character in the first one, I liked. I thought he was conflicted enough and well written. In this Last Jedi, I liked him a whole lot less, and I haven't seen it enough times to really figure that out. I just have this one. It's the scene where that kind of ruins it for me. It's just like his weird like old wrestler physique that's kind of fit but not fit.
Smolo?
with
Yeah.
those weird pants.
Yeah,
Ben
this
Swolo?
weird- yeah, you know, we're
I
yeah,
kind of forgot about that.
yeah,
joke.
like they're trying to
That's
show
a good way to describe it.
yeah, like
wrestler.
I picture like old Roddy Piper or something like that, where it's just kind of like, are those man boobs or are those pecs? I don't really know. And
Trying to make him a sex symbol when
Yeah,
it shouldn't be.
you know, and he's got some weird looks, I mean, huge nose, weird ears, and just kind of like he's a conglomerate of parts that I don't like.
I thought Kylo Ren was about the same. Like, I liked him about the same as I did in Episode 7. To me, he's what they were trying to do with Anakin in the prequels, but he actually works.
I'm not saying it's bad.
No,
I'm just
no,
saying
no.
I like it. I don't think he can, like in the first one, he has such good like conflict within himself, and you can visually see it in most of his scenes. I mean, and some of it's passed off as jokes, which is fine, completely fine with that. But in this one, he's not like emoting enough for me. Like, and you can clearly, I think they're writing him to be that emote, to have that expression, and he's just not getting it across. And
I think that's helping me. I like him. He's my favorite character in the new ones because he's just all over the place. You don't really know what to expect from him. He's a wild card. He's the
wild card bitches.
You know, spaz.
Yeah.
You don't know what he's gonna do.
He's too emo for me. That's why I don't
he's
like
going
him.
through all of his emotions. He hasn't figured it out.
I'm trying to remember
He's
if I
not
like the
a
fight
Force.
scene in the throne room.
Oh, that fight scene in the throne room is
I don't know if I like it or not. I can't. I mean,
I love it.
they didn't overly CGI, which I did like, and you know you can tell that they actually did some choreography and didn't do it. And there's
Well,
some cool weapons that come out. And
That's the thing I like about the new movies is that they realized we got to use some practical special effects in these. They can't all be CGI, and that
It
I mean, they brought back Puppet Yoda.
yeah. Oh, the Yoda. That was the
Yeah, that's a great scene.
you know, when the prequels were out, I wanted to know everything the second it could be known. With the new movies, I've taken I'll watch the trailers and I don't really try to research anything else. So like when Yoda shows up, it was a genuine surprise for me. Like I had no idea what was happening.
Can someone explain to me that hole in the ground scene? Like, what is she taking away from that? That the evil's inside of her?
What I took away from that is since Luke was like, "Oh, the dark side's down there," and she went down there, she's like, "I'm looking for answers." Just went up to the weird mirror thing,
Wall, yeah.
The super mirror.
Which is a good scene, by the way.
and then she was like,
Fifth dimensional mirror.
it was all like, "Oh, we have the answers you seek," and she's like, "Fine, tell me who my parents are." Goes through the whole thing. Nothing. It's like, okay, you can't tell me what I need. I don't need you. Walk away.
It might be that. It might be her like discovering that she's pure light. I don't know.
Did you?
What I took out of it is they can give her the answers she needs, and she asks who her parents are, and they don't answer because she doesn't need to know who her parents
Yeah,
are.
that'd be a good-
Right, because she's hung up on her parents.
That's not what's important. That's what I took out of it.
Yeah.
But no, that was odd to me. Like
Well, it's
the
like-
black butthole in the sand was.
It was a build up to something
It's-
like her, like Luke in the
tree?
Dagobah in the tree.
Well, that's just, it's supposed to be like the tree, you know. It's her
And maybe-
past, and what does
maybe
it
that's
mean?
why she passes it, and she's better. And Luke realizes at some point after Yoda's guidance that she's the one to restore the Force because she doesn't have that internal conflict. And I can see that when we're
That's-
talking about.
Well, that's why he does what he does at
Yeah.
the end to give her a chance to get away.
I did like the scene where she puts the book in the drawer and she takes it. I thought that was.
Yeah, see, now that was something that I didn't. I've only. That's the one I've seen the least. I've only seen it twice so far, and I didn't notice it on either of those viewings. My buddy was telling me like a couple weeks ago. It's like, she took the books, right? I'm like,
The
she
books.
what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay then,
Yeah.
sure.
Which is why Yoda electrocuted the tree.
The Yoda scene and the scene with Luke and R2D2's reunion are the
Yeah.
two best scenes in the movie.
Or even Luke and Leia.
Yeah.
When he hands her the dice, and it's like young Luke again. You're like, did he shave? Like,
Well, that's just it. I mean, the movie does a great job of like making him so scraggly at the beginning, where it's like I don't, it's like did he just like trim his beard and comb his hair? It's like they, obviously it's what he looked like 20 years ago or whatever, but you don't know that at the time, and that's what's fun.
when I saw that scene, I have seen one scene from the Clone Wars, the animated,
Mm-hmm.
and it's when Yoda destroys like the Star Destroyer, and he's coming in, and so I had like this brief moment of like he's gonna destroy him. Like he comes out and he's like, oh, we're gonna see some Force powers here, and that's why I didn't like it the first time I saw it, because I was just like, oh my god, this is gonna be so great. I got like a little nerd boner right now, and then nothing happens, and it seems like a letdown. But then the second time through, when you catch a lot of the nuances of the films and what they're setting up, and little hints to the previous film, and how it all connects together, it makes a lot more sense, and it's really good. And then Rey's end scene is that much more powerful. Like where I'm just gonna move some rocks. What good is moving rocks? And she does it, and it's like, holy shit, she moved a lot of fucking rocks. So,
To me, it's a lot of people again, didn't like what happened with Luke, where it's like he was making himself a symbol. He knew if he went there to the planet physically, it wouldn't have been nearly as powerful as if like he withstood an onslaught from whatever the hell those walker things were. He did all this
and
stuff.
a thought just occurred to me.
And it works because at the end the kid is reenacting that battle, like it's gone across.
And kind of like a weird parallel, just like if we think about the first trilogy,
Mhm.
1, 2, and 3, where Anakin is trying to be this war hero, and he's trying to like single-handedly save all of this, and then eventually he just can't. He doesn't because he's gonna fall, and maybe that's where Luke's sacrifice realizes that in order to save this thing, I have to become more than just a battle hero. I have to become that martyr, that symbol.
Mhm.
And that's a powerful film. And I like it more. I think I don't remember where I put Last Jedi in my list.
Oh,
5 maybe?
Ross, 5. Oh no, 6.
6. What did I put ahead of it?
The films we have remaining, with the exception of Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
I think I had put it at 5 as well, which means we're terrible and everybody's going to be like, you're wrong.
You're wrong.
Do we have anything else to say about Last Jedi?
It's a film that I have to watch a few more times before I can really formulate solid opinions on it. But I enjoyed it. It wasn't great.
It's not.
It was what it was.
It's not perfect, but I appreciate what they were trying to do to try to actually not cookie cutter, a Star Wars movie out again.
There's only one film that was great, so we'll get there.
The one thing, this is the only Star Wars film I've only seen once. Every other time, or film, actually aside from Solo, because I don't have it yet, I've seen in the
It's on
double
Netflix.
digits.
That's what I watched. I watched it on Netflix again.
It is the one I've seen the least so far. I've seen the other one, and part of it is just like I've realized I've seen a lot of the other ones too many times, so I'm deliberately trying to not watch the newer ones as much as I've watched the old ones.
You don't want to burn yourself out on it.
Well, I want to kind of, I want to like when I want to watch it, I'll watch it and I'll be entertained by it. Whereas opposed to a lot of the other films, it's like I can kind of just tune out, because